Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Hello, all you football fans, and welcome to the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, as always, Jeff Malinoff, and with me is Nolan, because Mark is with his family for Thanksgiving. Hope he's having a good time. Thinking about you, buddy. And, well, I had Thanksgiving with my family, too. Thanksgiving was great. I had some delicious food. My mom is an amazing cook. She makes these potatoes where she puts cheese and onions and sour cream and just basically makes like a loaded mashed potatoes. Oh, it's so good. Unhealthy, of course, but man, they were good. It was like a whole, like, it was bigger than like a bowl. It was like a pallet of these mashed potatoes and a pound of gravy, basically, and of course the turkey. Some cranberry sauce, some of this cranberry stuff with marshmallows in it. I couldn't really tell what it was exactly, but it was good. So my mom's homemade stuffed mushrooms, of course, were out of the park, and no complaints whatsoever on my Thanksgiving meal. Hope your Thanksgiving meal went great yourself. Shout out to all the moms and dads and husbands and wives and who and whatnot made that Thanksgiving dinner for their loved ones. I'm sure everyone's had a great Thanksgiving. Or Thanksgiving feast, at least. And so we're going to just go right into it. There were games on Thursday, of course, on Thanksgiving, because that's just the classic way of everyone just, there's dinner being made, there's football being watched. It's just a beautiful thing. So we're going to get right into it. We're going to start with the morning game. Chicago Bears and Detroit Lions. Chicago Bears win this one 23-16. It was a close score, but I just felt like it was more of a, it was 9-13 at one point for the Lions in favor. But the Bears defense just proved why it's one of the best, if not the best defense in the league. They had some clutch interceptions, some clutch sacks. Matthew Stafford was sacked twice, but they were both pretty in the clutch. Combined 14 yards lost. And to me, it feels like that the Bears are a serious contender. Like a serious contender against even some of the top teams like the Rams and the Saints, who have the best offenses in the league. This defense, I feel like, can handle them. I really do. I really think this team has what it takes to be great. And right now, like after this win for the Bears, I don't think they'll get a first-round bye just because of the Rams and the Saints being in the same conference as them in the NFC. They obviously, I think they will make it at least past the first round, the wild card round, I guess you can say, and get into the divisional round and play either the Rams or the Saints, whoever gets the second seed, because I'm assuming they're going to be the third best record in the NFC, and so I will have to go with the team that they have to play. It's probably going to be the Rams just because of side-by-side records, but overall I say the Rams and Bears matchup would be very interesting to see, very close game to say the least, and I'm looking forward to it. These playoff matchups that are going to be happening are definitely going to be very close games, very interesting games to say the least. And I'm looking forward to them. I'm sure you are as well. And right now, do I say that the Bears may get to the Super Bowl? Not yet, but give it time. I say they definitely are a serious contender to make it to that big game in Atlanta. Like, I know a lot of people are saying in the NFC, oh, the Falcons, and it's gonna be Falcons or NFC title game, which is fine. It's a very easy statement to make, and I would more than happy to see that game. I think that game would be incredible to watch. It was good to watch before, but I'm just not counting out the Bears. That's all I'm saying. Don't count out the Bears. Don't hate on the Bears. I think there's still a chance for them. But again, we're going to move on from this game and go to the afternoon game, which was the Redskins and the Dallas Cowboys. Redskins obviously lost Alex Smith last week due to injury, and they have Colt McCoy as their starter now against a pretty healthy Dallas team with Amari Cooper, Dak Prescott, and Ezekiel Elliott on the offensive side. And Dallas takes this one 31-23, and Dallas takes first place in the NFC East away from Washington. And it's truly amazing how Alex Smith's injury has played a huge factor in this team's now decline. Like, this team was at one point like, oh, this team's going to win the NFC East. That's great for them. To a point in now where this team might be the bottom of the NFC East. And all I have to say to that is, like, that does that give more credit for Alex Smith, or does that give least credit for the the whole team in the Washington Redskins? You know what I mean? Just like, how does that play into the fact that, like, is everyone else just not playing at a level? Was he like a bright side to this? I don't know. I honestly don't know. And it's showing that, man, how important is the quarterback position? I know that's an obvious statement to make, but Alex Smith is the leader of this team. And it really shows when they lost him. And to be honest, I don't know if his injury is going to be career ending or not. So, but gosh, I don't know. This is going to be a big question mark in the search of, like, how this team's going to pick up and how they're going to bounce back next season if Alex Smith is not there. I think they have to look for a quarterback in the draft. I think they might have to look for a quarterback in free agency. I'm not sure. I know they played Alex Smith all that money, but Alex Smith might be done for good. I don't know. It's truly remarkable how there's a lot to be talked about just by losing to Alex Smith. And when you're looking at the stats of this game, it was all Cowboys. Ezekiel Elliott, 121 yards rushing, 1 touchdown. Amari Cooper, 8 receptions, 180 yards and 2 touchdowns. Had a 90-yard catch also, which really put him over the top. And right now, Amari Cooper is saying, like, I was worth a first-round draft choice that the Cowboys gave up to the Oakland Raiders. And I think this team can actually prove to be, a playoff team. Like, I know they're first right now. They're 6-5. They're first in the NFC East. And I don't know where they will end up where it comes to wild card position, because obviously I don't think they'll get a first round bye. I think the first round byes are basically all but set in stone for the Rams and the Saints. So whoever the Cowboys have to face will have the work cut out for them, because I mean, this team just looks like a playoff team. And I know Josh Garrett gets a lot of beef for just being that clapping guy, but then he has great talent around him, and they're winning. They're winning games. Like, they're getting the job done. I can't explain other than that. And then we're gonna move on to the night game, where instead of turkey the Saints had for Thanksgiving, they replaced it with a Falcon. And they destroyed the Falcons by a score of 31-17. This game wasn't really that close from the beginning. They didn't. The Falcons didn't score a touchdown until late in the third quarter, and this was just all Saints all the way. Drew Brees with 4 touchdown passes, and only 171 yards passing. Granted, and he did have a pick, but 4 touchdowns. really puts him definitely in the line of like, this guy is going to be the MVP. If it's not him, I'll be shocked. But I understand Patrick Mahomes does have a case for MVP, but man, Breeze has been something else as well. So I'm taking another win for Breeze or Mahomes, but it's definitely between them two by far. But I have Breeze as my one, and then Mahomes is a close second. That's how I see that. But when you're looking at also the other stats of this game, Julio, like the Falcons had some good stats. Well, one good stat. Julio Jones had 147 yards on 11 receptions, but yet no touchdowns, which is a classic Julio Jones thing. Have an amazing game, a lot of yards, and not capitalize it with a touchdown. Calvin Ridley is one that had the first touchdown of the game, and he leads rookies with 8 touchdowns. That's great for him. I really am. I'm really like he's a serious player, and him coming into the Falcons team was a perfect situation for him, perfect offense for him. So I think he's playing extremely well with Julio Jones on the other side of the ball. Matt Ryan does have a lot of weapons to throw to. It just, why aren't they scoring? Why aren't they winning games? Shouldn't they be a lot better than they are now? I think so. I honestly think so. And I would say bottom line is this is a very disappointing season for the Falcons. Is there an excuse for them to play this bad? I don't know. But definitely a disappointing season, to say the least, for the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, 2 years ago, this team was in Super Bowl 51, ahead 28-3, moments away from winning the Super Bowl. Like, they just had to hold on to, they just had to stop one drive from the Patriots and they win that Super Bowl. If they stopped one drive, they win the Super Bowl. And they didn't. And they're haunted by it now. The biggest comeback in Super Bowl history, the only overtime in Super Bowl history. And they're never going to live that down. The fan base, the NFL's social fan base is never going to have them live that down. The community of the NFL is never going to let them live that down, because that's just such a huge, huge collapse in this modern time where it's going to be remembered forever. And this doesn't help their case of getting over that and moving on from that. When they've struggled the next two seasons, yeah, they made the playoffs the year afterwards, but they try to throw this weird fade bootleg route from Ryan and force it to Julio, and it just wasn't smart. It wasn't smart game plan. It wasn't smart play calling at the end of there. The game I'm talking about is them and the Eagles in I believe it was divisional round. It could have been a wild card. Couldn't really make it out, but yes, the Falcons are on a downhill. The Saints, in my opinion, are still the best team in football, and this just proves it. And right now, just extremely impressed by the Saints. I mean, they had a pretty disappointing season last year, and then they had the first week lost to the Buccaneers, and ever since then, 10 straight wins really speaks for itself. And how good this offense is with the Saints of Breeze, Kamara, Ingram, Michael Thomas. The list just goes on. And the defense is starting to step up, like the Eli Apple trade maybe kind of helped a little bit in that circumstance of good defensive players. And this defense is starting to step up a little bit, starting to get into a groove of their own. So I think the best team in football has to be the New Orleans Saints. I really do. But since we talked about all those 3 games, we're going to take a short break. When we get back, we'll be talking about every game of the NFL week this week. From Sunday, all the games Sundays, but not the Monday one. We talk about Monday games on the Monday show, but we will talk about all the Sunday games when we get back.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back, everyone, to the GSMC Football Podcast. You know, during Thanksgiving, I was talking to my mom about the show we did today about pumpkin pie and sweet potato pie. She got very angry because she thought sweet potato pie and pumpkin pie are two completely different things. But then as I tasted both of them side by side, they're pretty equal in my opinion. And you know, there's actually a lot of anger that goes through people about this, which is a little harsh. So that's all I got to say about that. Is maybe not be so angry about that. So that's how I see it. Let's go on to the games that are happening on Sunday in the NFL. We'll start with 49ers and Buccaneers. And we're starting off with a pretty boring game, but we're going to go from boring to fun, I guess. We got the 2-8 with a practice squad quarterback 49ers versus the Jameis Winston now Buccaneers. Jameis Winston is getting the start in Tampa Bay, and looking at this game, it feels like this game should more of be a tank game, like a tank bowl type of thing, because both are in the comings of a top 10 pick. Well, the 49ers are looking at top 5. Buccaneers maybe in the top 5, but probably 6 to 10. But if I had to make a bet of who's going to win this game, just because of how poorly the 49ers defense is, I'm going to give the edge to the Buccaneers, and I think their offense is going to do better than the 49ers defense. I know that's saying a lot, but I'm still going to go with the Buccaneers over the 49ers. Mainly I just think the 49ers are in a little tank mode more than the Buccaneers are. That's just how I see it. Moving on, we got the Browns and the Bengals. The Paul Brown rivalry. One has the stadium named after him. One was created by him. Well, let's see. Paul Brown was the main coach for the Browns, and that made sense. Anyways, they're both playing pretty poor at the moment. 5-5 for the Bengals, 3-6-1 for the Cleveland Browns, which is 3 more wins they had last year. So good for them. But looking at this, Baker Mayfield versus Andy Dalton, Nick Chubb versus Joe Mixon. AJ Green is questionable for this game, so if he plays, I feel like that'll be a huge impact on this game. But I'm still gonna go with the Buccaneers, the Bengals. They're all with B. That's confusing, but I am gonna go with the Cincinnati Bengals. I know the Browns are coming off a win against Atlanta last week, and that's great for them, no question about it. But I just think it will be the best interest for them to lose rather than win, because the best they can do is 9-6-1, and who knows if that'll be enough for the playoffs. And for the Bengals, I just think, looking at the stats here, they're going to have a little bit of an edge in this one, all things considered. But I think what's going to happen is Andy Dalton's going to have a pretty decent game. I think AJ Green's going to return, and he's going to carve up the Cleveland Browns. But I still see it as a close game. I see maybe a field goal difference in this one, but I still give the edge to the Bengals. Then we're going to go to the Giants and the Eagles. Probably the big rivalry game of the week, in comparison to probably the Jets and Patriots, but I think Giants and Eagles is more historical and more blood feud. I mean, Eagles fans and Giants fans hate each other. There's a huge dislike between the two. And both teams have been playing pretty disappointing this season. Giants were kind of expected to do that just because they got Saquon Barkley. They were expected to be still in a rebuilding mode. They need a new quarterback. They're probably going to get one in this draft. Most likely Justin Herbert, the number 1 QB prospect from Oregon. And as for Philadelphia, They're just on a stretch of disappointment after winning the Super Bowl last year with Nick Foles, and now they have was probably the MVP ending the season before he got hurt, Carson Wentz, who's not playing at the MVP level he was last year. And now the Eagles are kind of in this like Super Bowl hangover where they're still like taking Advil and like trying to fall asleep. So right now, I'm going to give the edge to the Giants just because Saquon Barkley's been a whole different beast lately. And he has carried that team to the win against the 49ers, their last win. But I think the main crucial thing here is that the running game of the Giants is better than the running defense of the Eagles. I know when they got Michael Bennett, this is supposed to be the huge addition. They're going to repeat as champions, no question about it. But, I mean, talk about struggling. Like, this is incredibly disappointing. This got to be heartbreaking for fans of the Eagles expecting a repeat. But I don't even see them making to the... They might be the bottom of the barrel when it comes to the NFC East, like dead last in the NFC East by the season's end. In logic, in summarizing that, I just say no. The Eagles are not going to make the playoffs, and I think it's going to seal their bar lowering with the loss here to the Giants. Eagles are 6-point favorites, yes, but I still am going to go with the Giants on this one. I think Barkley's going to be the difference maker in that, definitely, absolutely. And let's continue on, shall we? We're going to move on to the Jaguars and Bills. I don't know if you would call that a rivalry game or not, but they are playing each other. Both teams have been pretty disappointing this season. They made the playoffs last year, and now they're both 3-7. I mean, I think the Bills was expected because it was like they had so much happen on their side, on their favor to make the playoffs. As for the Jaguars, they were in the NFC title game. They were close to going to the Super Bowl. And now they're 3-7 and back to classic Jaguars form. And I don't know what caused this. I don't know if they lost anyone, but I think what many people are speculating is you can't win. Maybe not speculating, but their opinion. Their opinion is you can't win with Blake Bortles. So, Jacksonville, if you're going to get a top 5 pick in the draft, I would have to say go for a quarterback. Or maybe even free agent market, go for a quarterback. You could probably afford one. But the bottom line is, I think this charade with Blake Bortles maybe is hit its course. Maybe it's time for it to come to an end. I don't know personally, but we will definitely find out as this season goes on, and once the end season, mid-season, off-season, we'll see how Jaguars and both the Bills and Jaguars step up in their respective off-seasons. But if I had to make a choice, I'm going to go with the guy who has the hot hand right now, and that's Matt Barkley. He's getting the start, most likely. And looking at this, like, I don't want Josh Allen to play if I'm Buffalo. The season's already kind of a lost cause. So let's just keep him on the bench for now and just have him ready by next season. And Matt Barkley is doing a good job. They won their last game. So he's doing more than Derek Anderson or Nathan Peterman had done in the past. But, yes, I have the Bills winning this. Moving on to the Jets and Patriots. 7-3 Patriots, 3-7 Jets. This is like a classic bully story of like every day the bully asks for your lunch money and you're just like, oh, all right, same old. That classic like movie. Like, I get what's about to happen. I know what's happening. Why try to stop it? That's the Jets and Patriots feud in my book. Like, the Patriots have had the Jets number ever since Bill Belichick resigned as the head coach of the Jets and went to the New England Patriots and won 5 Super Bowls and became one of the greatest coaches of all time. It's put a damper on the Jets, and the Jets haven't really gone anywhere since then, like a couple of AFC title games. But looking into this game, I definitely see that the Patriots have the edge, as well as Sam Darnold not playing. That's a huge factor for them as well for the Patriots. And Josh McDaniels will be playing. So I think that's going to be a big dent in Jets' chances to win this game, and I'm going to get the Patriots all the way. As long as Josh McDaniels is the quarterback, I don't see an improvement in this team. So, of course, this team is still young. It needs time to develop and maybe high draft picks, some good free agent markets pickups. This team could do good, but that's a lot to ask for, too. They need a lot more rebuilding than that. Moving on, we're going to go Raiders and Ravens. Ravens. Sounds very alike. 2-8 Raiders, 5-5 Ravens. Ravens looking for a playoff spot. Their defense is ranked one of the top in the league against a Raider team that is lackluster at best. Less than lackluster? Maybe less than? It's pretty bad. So, and Lamar Jackson is going to make his second start versus the Raiders, who had a pretty decent game last week in his first start. So, yeah, I'm definitely going to give the edge to Baltimore. Just with the Raiders, they had a practice squad quarterback, Nick Mullins, tear them apart and lose 34-3 against a very poor 49ers team, to be all things considered. And with this game against the Ravens, one of the top defenses in the league, and maybe a superstar in Lamar Jackson who has the speed and has the arm to be deadly, there's not a lot the Raiders have a chance of winning at, and this isn't one of them. So give me the Ravens in this one. But we are going to take a little bit of a short break right now. When we get back, we'll talk about the rest of the games in the NFL that are happening on Sunday, as well as some college games that are going to be happening. So stay tuned for that.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA Podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back, everyone, to the GSMC Football Podcast. Finishing up the Sunday games here. And we just finished talking about the Raiders and Ravens games. So let's move on to the other games that are happening this week. And we have the Seahawks and Panthers. Two teams are looking for wild card playoff berths. But if I had to give the edge to someone, I would probably give it to Carolina. Just on the fact is, I feel like they have the better team. I know they're coming off a loss to Detroit, and Seattle's coming off a win against Green Bay. But I don't know. I just feel like the Panthers have lost 2 straight, yes. But I feel like they still have a chance to make the wild card spot, and I think they will make the wild card spot. Cam Newton is questionable, granted, but I still think that he will play. And if he does play, I see the Seattle defense isn't what it used to be anymore. So I gotta have to give the edge to Cam Newton, the former MVP, over let's just say a wounded defense in Seattle. Is that good? A wounded defense? Does that work for everybody? All right, good. But you also got to look at like their points per game and their yards per game and all of that. And when you're looking at those, it seems like it's almost an even game, more of an advantage to maybe Carolina just by a very small margin. Total yards per game, Seattle has 373.5 yards, and Carolina has 375.8 yards per game. So that's pretty darn close, all things considered. And then yards allowed per game, Seattle allows 364.3 to Carolina's 366.1. So you're looking at it, both are even on paper. Close records, 1 win, 1 loss apart from each other in wins. Yards is the most is like 2.5 yards apart in total yards per game and allowed per game. So why do I say the Panthers still? I say the Panthers because Cam Newton is more dangerous and right now than Russell Wilson is. And what I mean by that is, honestly, Cam Newton's playing a great game. Cam Newton's playing a great season, and he's bouncing back through injuries and all this, not getting injuries and yada, yada, yada. But I do say that Cam Newton will lead his team to victory over the Seattle Seahawks. Because now you got to look at defense. You already know their offense and their defense are equal, but you got to look at the quarterback position. Do you go with Cam Newton or do you go with Russell Wilson? I know that's a tough choice, but I'm going to go with Cam Newton in my opinion. I really do. I feel like he's bigger, stronger, can get the ball out more. He's a little more intimidating under the center than Russell Wilson is. I think it's a big size issue that matters most between players, whether to blitz or not. But yeah, give me the Carolina Panthers in this victory over the Seattle Seahawks and have them continue to have a place in the NFC West. Moving on now, we've got a game that's not so interesting. Good team versus bad team. Chargers versus Arizona. And Arizona is only on 3 wins this season. Or 2 wins, actually. Because they've only beaten the 49ers. That's the only victories they've had against. So that's how that's going. And I almost said San Diego again. Los Angeles Chargers are playing extremely well. The thing is, they're forgotten a little bit. They're 7-3 because of how good Kansas City is playing, and how good they're contributing, and how good Patrick Mahomes is becoming, and Kareem Hunt, and Tyreek Hill, and all these other guys. Travis Kelce's added to that list. That puts the Chargers on the back burners of attention getting when it comes to the AFC West. Now, if the Chargers appear in the AFC West as a playoff spot, they're going to be a difficult team to beat, though. I think they might be a dark horse when it comes to seeing a team go from wild card to Super Bowl. I really do. And the beginning of the season, everyone was like, oh, the Chargers have a legitimate chance to go to the Super Bowl. I was a little skeptical at first because of their past history. But now I'm kind of understanding why they're saying this team can make it to the Super Bowl. This team, great on defense. Melvin Gordon's playing at the top of his game. Phillip Rivers is showing up in an MVP candidate type season. And it just seems to be going well for the Chargers. And I think that's what's going to put them over the top if they ever make it that far into the postseason. After that game, we got the Dolphins and Colts, both 5-5, but I'm going to give the edge to the Colts here because Andrew Luck has been playing extremely well. I believe he's comeback player of the year. And so I'm going to go the Indianapolis Colts on this, just how well he's been playing, how well he's been contributing. T.Y. Hilton's had a great game last week. Marlon Mack is becoming a man of its own at the running game. The defense is starting to become pretty decent, pretty solid defense. But, man, Andrew Luck really shows how good he can make players around him look. And it's a special gift. Like, Marlon Mack looks like an all-pro running back. T.Y. Hilton looks like a one receiver, definitely. And he is a wide receiver in Indianapolis, but probably not any other places. And yet he's handling that number one position extremely well, and he's doing a very good job. So give me the Colts over the Dolphins. And as for the Dolphins is concerned, like Brock Osweiler has been struggling. Ryan Tannehill is supposed to come back this week, but what condition is he in? Is he going to play well? Is he going to let this nagging injury that he's had for a month get into his head? Who knows what's going to happen? But again, only time will tell when it comes to Sunday. But yeah, give me the Colts in this one over the Dolphins. I just don't think the Dolphins have enough talent to break against this pretty decent Colts team, if you ask me. And moving on once again, we got the Steelers and the Broncos. Steelers coming off a pretty impressive victory over Jacksonville. And they almost lost to Granson, and James Conner almost dropped a wide open pass in the end zone. Yes, but this team is still high-powered offense. James Conner's playing just like Le'Veon Bell is, let's be honest. Ben Roethlisberger playing at the top of his game. And everyone else in part of that team is doing extremely well. So I definitely am considering going for the Steelers in this one. I just think that everyone's going in the right direction. I think this team's definitely a playoff contender. I see the same as you, maybe a start course for the Super Bowl. Add the Chargers in that mix, and we got something interesting there. And as for the last game of Sunday, we got the Sunday night game, the Packers and the Vikings. The Packers are 4-5-1 to the Vikings 5-4-1. This team tied before, and they both had probably pretty disappointing seasons, all things considered, especially the Vikings. I mean, the Vikings came off an NFC title game appearance in Philadelphia to now 5-4-1, which is not really a playoff type of record or a chance to go to playoffs. So they're kind of on the outside looking in at the moment. Kirk Cousins is not playing at his best. He had a fully guaranteed contract, and he's not playing to that money at the moment. He really isn't. He's been average at best. I know that's a bold thing to say, but looking at his stats, Kirk Cousins that is, he's got 2,900 yards, 19 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. That sounds decent on paper, but when you look at how he plays, look how the whole team plays during the games, he can do more. I feel like Kirk Cousins is more capable of more, but I think he's still trying to find his rhythm when it comes to Minnesota, like he did in Washington. He found his rhythm, and he kind of stuck with it, and it worked. And look at his contract he has now in Minnesota, so it kind of shows. So, yeah, that's how I see the Vikings. But if I had to pick, and then you look at the Packers side, Aaron Rodgers only has 1 interception this year, 19 touchdowns. And it's a pretty quiet 19-1 year for Rodgers. And looking at this in total, you got to think is his other team around him just that bad where he's really doing everything he can, but his receivers, his low line, his running backs can't really help him get it done, help him get into the end zone. And I'll have to agree with that. I have to agree with myself on that one because, like, his offense has a lot to be desired. He needs more talent around him to really win games. And Mike McCarthy's on this hot seat. And honestly, if this season ends with a losing record, he's fired. I think he's fired. I really do. And it's just because of the fact that he's given so many opportunities after opportunities. Won the Super Bowl in 2012, yes, but ever since then, they've been doing virtually nothing. And with all of this going down, I see that it's going to be very interesting going into this game against the Vikings, and where he needs all the help he can get. He needs all this help, but he doesn't get it. Are they going to try to tank? What's the question? I don't know. But we're going to find out on Sunday what's going to happen. That's all the games that are happening on Sunday, but that's not all the games that are happening this weekend in the world of football. There's one game I want to talk about that is just as big as any NFL game that's happening this week. And that is a classic matchup between Ohio State and Michigan. The game is coming up on tomorrow, 9 a.m. Pacific time. I want to check that out. It's going to be in Columbus, Ohio. And looking into this game, this is Harbaugh's chance to really solidify himself as a big-time coach, a successful head coach. As if he loses this game, I don't think there's a chance he's making the playoffs with a 2-loss team. I really don't. And with Ohio State, they are still on the outside looking in, but with a win over the number 4 team in the nation, they could jump high. They can jump way over possibly to Michigan and take a playoff spot from them and steal one, basically. And, of course, this game is probably it's like the Super Bowl Sunday type of thing. It's a huge event. It's big, especially Ohio State and Michigan right next to each other. Ann Arbor and Columbus. And this has been going for, it feels like centuries, doesn't it? It feels like since the beginning of time, beginning of football, Ohio State and Michigan have played each other in a battle for supremacy. I mean, these two played in 1900s, like 1901, 1900. They played each other. That's insane. I can't comprehend that. Do they ride in on horseback to these games? I don't know. That's how old this rivalry is. It's old as Like, our great-great-grandfathers and grandmothers probably watched this game happen. Like, that's our great-grandfather. Maybe great-great. Yeah, that sounds right. Depends on how old we are. And then our great-great-great-grandchildren will probably still see these teams face off in 100 years from now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, our great-grandkids probably watch this, and then our great-grandkids or great-great-grandkids will watch it. And go on until you know what? Even if the planet explodes into smithereens, there'll still be a football field left scouring the earth, and that'll be the Ohio State team and the Michigan team still battling it out. As even when the world explodes, they still battle. But it'll be like aliens wearing Michigan uniforms and aliens and maybe some humans wearing Ohio State uniforms. Who knows? But it's going to go on until at the end of time, definitely. And this game is just. It's a huge event. It's over 100,000 people go to this game. Hundreds of thousands more tailgate it. And this year, I feel like there's so much on the line in this game, especially this year, because there's a number 4 team, another number 10 team here. 2 top 10 teams. Ohio State, since it's still football royalty, they could still make it into the college football playoff if they beat Michigan and win the Big Ten. This team can take that playoff spot and steal one. And they might need some maybe leverage on that and like Notre Dame lose their game to USC that's happening this weekend as well. And just do what they can to really put this into reality. But they do need to, first off, they need to step 1, beat Michigan. Then they can worry about the next steps to help them get into a college football playoff. But Harbaugh has never beaten Urban Meyer. In his tenure with the Michigan Wolverines, he's not beaten Urban Meyer yet. And I don't know if that's eating away at him because he's just like, that's the rivalry and that's him just being competitive, or it's like something he needs for his coaching legacy to beat Urban Meyer, to get into the college football playoff, to have something accomplished in his career, because he's always been so close to championships and fallen apart. Even in the NFL, he was close. So I do say that Jim Harbaugh needs this win probably more than Urban Meyer needs this win, but they're both going through something. Like Harbaugh's legacy is at stake, and Urban Meyer's having some stuff off the field and stuff that's happening with him. We won't get into that. That's been kind of played upon already. But the thing is, Jim Harbaugh, if he loses this game, I think he's on thin ice in Michigan. I don't think he's going to lose his job, but I think some people will think maybe this is the right choice. Maybe we got the wrong guy. Maybe we got a guy that's not very clutch or can't win the big one, and we want to win the big one. Not just the game, but also national championships. They want to win national titles again. And if Harbaugh loses this game, maybe they have to accept the fact that maybe they can't win the championship with Jim Harbaugh. I honestly don't know. And then you look at, even if he gets to the college football playoff and he loses in the first round, like loses in one of the bowl games before the national championship game, would that put him in a perspective of he can't win the big one still? Or is it on the lines of he's getting closer and closer, we just got to keep trying, and then it'll eventually work? Which makes sense. Like, you're getting closer and closer every time, you're making progress. So if he beats Urban Meyer, I guess that's a short amount of progress to get to that national championship they're looking for. But also, it's also one of those things where if he loses in the first round, if he's number 4 seed and they lose to Alabama, if they play Alabama, then the talk will be, well, can he even get to the national championship game in his career? And that's a big question mark on him. So he has a lot to answer for. He has to answer his critics right here. But we're going to take a short break. When we get back, we'll talk about other games that are happening in the world of college football. And we'll get right on that when we get back to you.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back to the final segment of the GSMC Football Podcast. We finished out talking about the game between Michigan and Ohio State that's happening this weekend. But let's also talk about other key games that are happening in the world of college football, such as the Iron Bowl. As in the Iron Bowl, we got, of course, number 1 Alabama versus unranked Auburn. But, of course, anything could happen in this game. As we all know, the infamous kick six is still one of the greatest plays to ever happen in college football history. And this game really shows, like, if Alabama loses this, I don't see them not being in the playoff. Like, that's not the issue. But it could change some seeding around. It could definitely change some things around in the college football playoff picture. But Alabama not being in it, that's no way that's not going to happen. So what I see here is Auburn has a potential to play a certain role in maybe Clemson taking the first seed, and Michigan, if Michigan beats out Ohio State, then they'll play Clemson. And then number 3, Notre Dame, if they beat USC, will play number 2, Alabama. And that would be a whole different story. That would change a lot of the aspects. Because even though there will be little changes, it'll still be a big effect, I feel like. I feel like it'll still be a potential, like, this could change what the outcome is going to be in the college football playoff national championship game. And so, looking at this, I know Auburn is struggling. They're 7-4. They're not as good as they used to be. They're not national championship contenders, or even they'll get into a little small bowl game, I believe. But overall, I would definitely say that over the course of this game, I can still see Auburn winning. Not by much. Like off another miracle play, I could totally see that, but it's not logical. It's not likely. I still see the Alabama Crimson Tide taking this and keeping the number 1 overall ranking into the college football playoff. And, a lot of people say this team's just going to win the national championship game, which is probable. But if this is how the schedule works for the college football playoff, they have to play Michigan, which is a pretty tough team to play regardless. But if they win that game, they have to play between Clemson again, which will be, I believe, the 3rd time in the last 4 years that would happen. And then they would have to play, or they play Notre Dame, which they have played Notre Dame in the past. And it was the 2013 national championship game. I think it was the year before the college football playoff really began. Actually, you know what? 2014 there was a BCS, so maybe it was 2015 Yeah, 2015 is when the college football playoff began. So it was the second to last year before they went to the college football playoff system. And Notre Dame, they destroyed Notre Dame 42-14 in that game in 2013. So Notre Dame could try to get the revenge, and all things considered, if they make it that far. But when this college football playoff, it's going to be a very interesting dynamic between either Alabama playing Notre Dame or Clemson, or the fact that Michigan could upset Alabama, and play Notre Dame or Clemson. And I say that because in 2014, in 2014 when it first happened, the first college football playoff happened, at Ohio State was the number 4 seed and won it all. Like, they upset. It was a big upset. And they beat Alabama 42-35 and went on to beat Oregon in the national title game. And so that was a Big Ten team beating Alabama, an SEC team. So could history repeat itself again? Could Michigan, a Big Ten team, beat a SEC number 1 ranked Alabama team? I mean, that's a possibility. It's a huge possibility. And I wouldn't count them out by any means. And yeah, it's like being the lowest seed, you have to play the best team, but it's one of those things in where they're so evenly matched, the top 4 teams in the league, in the college football world, that whoever ends up in Santa Clara, whoever ends up at Levi Stadium in the 2019 college football national championship game, they will be evenly matched regardless. I don't care what anyone says about like how strength of schedule or whatnot, but how I see it going is like the Orange Bowl and the Cotton Bowl, like those are going to be the 2 playoff bowl games, and then it goes to Levi Stadium in the national championship game. But how I see this going is Alabama has a tough road ahead of them. I know that's so cliche, and they come out and win every time. But I mean, don't count out Michigan, don't count out Notre Dame, don't count out Clemson. Like, everyone's counting those guys out and saying, "Oh, Alabama's winning this. It's just a foregone conclusion." Like the Warriors in the NBA almost. But I have to say that I'm not doubting that is not going to happen. Don't get me wrong. I could totally see Alabama winning. That's not like a surprise to me at all, of course. But how I see it all playing out is the fact that Michigan can give Alabama a run for its money, as well as, like, I don't know. I just see potential in these games, these playoff games that are going to transpire. And, of course, like we said, Notre Dame is playing USC, and USC could play spoilers to Notre Dame. Notre Dame might even be in the tournament, but USC is having a struggle year, a little under 500, and with that, I would put it more in the favor of Notre Dame continuing holding on to that number 3 seed. And then they're all playing unranked teams, except for Michigan. Michigan's getting the hardest road, and the rest are getting kind of easy. So if Michigan gets to this point and beats Alabama, they're going to be well deserving of the opportunity to play in the national championship game, because they'll beat Ohio State, and then a couple weeks later they would beat Alabama. So that would be incredibly impressive, to say the least. 2 of the last 3 national champions were Ohio State and Alabama, the other one being Clemson. So overall, I say this is going to be a very good matchup this weekend. And I think that is all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Please tune us in on Monday as we recap all the games that have happened, and tune into our other podcasts, our fantasy football podcast, our baseball podcast, our basketball podcast, our soccer podcast are on Wednesdays. We have so many other sport podcasts we have available to you. So please tune us in Monday. Mark will return, and we'll still get into our old selves yet again. And we will see you on Monday. Have a good weekend, everybody. Oh, and before I forget, be safe on this Black Friday today, as well as Cyber Monday. Just be safe. Just make sure there's any problems. Like, there was a shooting at a mall last night during the Black Friday, and I'm just saying, like, everyone just be careful and be safe. Have a good one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com.